Hi everyone, it's Christine here from Ever After Paper Crafts, and today I have a super fun fall card to share with you. This is the card that we're going to be working on. This card contains a couple different techniques. We did some watercoloring of the images here with zig markers and a water brush, and then to create the background I used a leaf stencil from Honeybee Stamps and some gold glimmer paste to create that beautiful fall background. Before doing the glimmer paste, I used some Distress Oxide inks to give us the beautiful coloring, and then placed the stencil over top and did the glimmer paste. The stencil and the stamps are from Honeybee Stamps. This is the stamp set, and it is called Seasonal Sweeties, and it has these adorable girl images as well as some really neat sentiments that you can mix and match and pair together to create some really fun sentiments. I used a simple sentiment on this card because I really wanted the background and the images to be the stars of the show. I did add some black paint splatters to the background as well as some black Nouveau drops just to give it a little bit of extra and to kind of bring in the black from the sentiment. And then I also heat embossed the sentiment in white embossing powder. And then of course popped the images and the sentiment up with some foam tape. All right, so that is kind of an introduction to what we're going to be doing. I thought I would start today with the painting of the images and then show you quickly how I did the background. So let's go ahead and get started. I already stamped the image onto Canson XL watercolor paper using some dye ink that is waterproof safe. And I apologize for my voice, guys. I have another cold that I can tell is turning into a sinus infection, so bear with me and we'll get through this, I promise. All right, so let me go ahead and zoom in just a little bit so you can see the coloring a little bit better. All right, so I'm going to start with her hair, and for her hair I used dark brown and brown of my zig markers. Of course, I'm also using my detailer water brush, which is my favorite water brush for getting into small spaces and everything. It really is a fantastic water brush in my opinion. You can also use a paintbrush and water with the zigs. Just make sure if you're doing that and coloring a fine image like this that you use a paintbrush that has a very fine tip that will enable you to get into some of these very small spaces that the stamp has. Alright, so I'm coming in with my dark brown marker first. As always, I'm using the darkest color first, and I'm just mapping out where I feel that there's going to be some shadow in her hair. She's facing to the left, so I have the light source coming in this way. However, I feel that when doing hair, I don't worry a whole heck of a lot about the light source, because I find that the illustrator of the image really has kind of mapped out with the valleys and the strands of hair, has kind of mapped out for us where a lot of that shadow is going to be. So that I really kind of just let the image dictate to me. For example, this hair is kind of laying on top of this behind. So back here I've put some shadow. Same with this strand here and this little strand right here. I hope that makes sense. Alright, so now I'm going to come in and let my water brush do the rest of the work. And again, I'm working in sections, so I'm just doing this small section here first. And I'm just going to mix everything together and bring it out into the open space, the white space that we left behind here. And as you can see, you have a very lovely highlight there. You have some shadows and you have some depth. Now it almost looks like that hair pops right off the page. And that's what we're looking for. Nothing has to be perfect. I just am looking for, when I do this, for me, I'm just looking for a little bit of distinction between the light and the dark areas, just to give that image a little bit of three-dimensional pop. I hope that that makes sense as well. So I'm coming in now with this bottom section, doing the same thing, coming in with the dark brown first, mixing the brown with the dark brown. I kind of feel like this bottom section of hair is going to be mostly shaded, mostly darker with the way that the hair is drawn here, but we still want to leave some room for some dimension, some lighter spaces, if that makes sense. And there we go. We have some light there in the middle. There we go. I think that that looks really, really pretty. Hopefully that shading is showing up on camera because it is very noticeable in person and it's very pretty. It will show up in the pictures of the original card that I made, and I will have a link in the description box of this video below to my blog where you can see lots of pictures, a complete product list of all the products that I used to create this card as well. So make sure you check that out in the description box below. By the way, I am creating this card today for Butterfly Reflections Inc., which is an amazing shop. Has all of the new releases from all of your favorite stamp companies. Everything you can imagine is in that store. And I will have a link, again, like I said, on the blog to all of the products that I use, and they will all be linked to Butterfly Reflections Inc., where you can get great prices and great selection of items. Okay, so we've done her hair. Now I'm going to move down to her coat. And the reason why I'm not going to do her face next or her scarf is because, and I've said this in other videos before, but I can't stress it enough because I still find myself sometimes making this mistake and it's frustrating. Although the zigs are so forgivable that I can always fix it. But if I go in right now and work on this scarf, for example, this hair is still a little bit wet. So there's a good chance that I might reactivate that hair as I'm working on the scarf. Because see, the scarf, there's elements of areas of the scarf rather that touch that hair. And if I do that, then I'm going to get some bleeding of the ink I'm going to use for the scarf into the hair. And it's just, you know, you have to then go in and fix it all and redo it. And you don't have to throw the image away, again, because the zigs are so forgiving. But I have found that it is just easier and less stress inducing to go ahead and just kind of move down to an image that's further away, or a part of the image rather, that's further away from the hair. So I'm going to do her little coat now. And for the coat, I am using dark red and pale rose. This is a beautiful color combination that I was just playing around with one day and came upon. It's not one that you might, that might jump out at you initially when you're looking at the zigs. But when you have your zigs all swatched, you really find some really fun color combinations that you maybe wouldn't have used before. And this is really beautiful. I love this color combination. So I'm coming in with my darkest color first, as you saw, the dark red. And now I am mixing what I have laid down. Again, I'm working in sections. And I am mixing the deep red with the pale rose. As you see, you get this really, really pretty mixture. And then, of course, when we come back in and add the water, we're going to get almost like a third color, which is just beautiful, and I love it. All right. So now I'm going to come in with the water brush and just mix these colors together here and fill in the white space. I'm trying to stay as clear of the buttons as I can because I'm going to have them be a different color. But if I do get a little bit of pink in the buttons, it's not a big deal. I'm going to use a darker blue color for the buttons, so I will be able to just simply color over any mistake I might make. If you were going to use a lighter color for the buttons and you did get a little bit of pink in there, no big deal. All you need to do is take your clean water brush and get that color out. Super easy to do. And I'll show you, I just went out of the lines here. I'll show you what I mean in just a minute. I'm just adding a little bit more pale rose. I've said this in other videos before too. When you're dealing with a part of an image that's a little bit larger, such as this coat, it's a fairly substantial size. You sometimes have to go back in with your lighter color and just to get that ink or that paint, whatever you want to think of it as. I like to think of the markers as paint myself, as watercolor paint, but whatever you like to think of them as, just to get it to kind of spread all the way to the edge of the section that you're working on. Okay, and that is looking really, really good. Now, if you can see here, sometimes I've noticed when I watch my videos back, it doesn't always show up, but I have gone out of the line here with that pale rose marker. Not a big deal. I've cleaned off the tip of my water brush on my paper towel here that's right next to me off camera. So it's a clean tip, and I'm just going to come in and push this ink onto the water brush, basically. And then I can scribble it off, and it will actually come off on the paper towel. And you might have to do this several times, but it will eventually come off. You'll be able to erase that color that's gone out. It's a really cool feature of the zigs, I think. I really, really love this. You can kind of liken it to using that colorless blender if you're familiar with Copic markers. Similar idea. All right, let's finish her coat really quickly here so this video is not too terribly long because we still have the background to do. So I'm going to come in and with the deep red rather, again, and just put a little bit more color down. This side of the coat is certainly going to be lighter because it's closer to the light source, as I have envisioned the light source coming in from the left. But we still want a little bit of shadows here. So I'm going to come in now with the pale rose and mix that together with the deep red. Okay, and now we are ready to go ahead and mix with our water. And just see how effortlessly that color moves when you react these markers to the water. It's really kind of fun to watch. It's really, really cool. It really makes coloring, in my opinion, for me, so much easier, and I just love the results that you get when working with the zigs. All right, so there's her jacket, very quickly colored rather. Let me do now the scarf. And for the scarf, I used a peacock blue, which is a very dark blue. And I'm just going to put a little bit down because the darker the color, the less marker generally I'm going to put down because a little really goes a long way. So let me come in now with the water. And as you can see there, it just started flowing, didn't it? It's very easy. It just sort of reacts with that water and boom, you know, it just flows and you have a really pretty shading and shadowing there. Okay, I think I'm going to leave the rest of the image so this isn't too terribly long, but for the little boots I just used brown, which is one of the colors from her hair, and then of course you've seen me do skin tones a million times, flesh color, blush, and sugared almond pink for the cheeks. All right, so let me just set this image aside here. Bring back over the finished card super quick so you can see the finished coloring. For the little cat, I just used brown and light brown, and then a little bit of light pink for the cheeks and the inside of his ears. All right, so now we're gonna do this really fun gold leafed background. And to do that, I've already gone ahead and taken a piece of Canson XL watercolor paper, and I have cut it already to 5 1/4 by 4 1/2. I'm sorry, 5 1/2 by 4 1/4. The standard size of an A2 card front. Let me go ahead and zoom back out here too so we can see. I'm going to pull over some scratch paper because first we want to do our inking. And to do that, I used Candied Apple Distress Oxide ink, Wild Honey, and worn lipstick. Whoops. So let's quickly just get our little embossing pads ready to go here. And for this I just use, whenever I'm doing any type of distress ink or any type of ink blending, I use these Ranger mini blending pads with the little foam. I just find that this works the best. All right, so I started with the Wild Honey here. And we're just going to do the Wild Honey about half the way up. So I have a light hand here and I'm just applying the ink. Super easy. Super, super easy. I like to kind of start a little tiny bit off the paper and work my way in, but these oxide inks are very forgiving, so it's very easy to work with them. Now I'm going to come in with the worn lipstick. Where the Wild Honey stops, so kind of like here-ish. Just sort of mix it with the Wild Honey, just a little bit, just a little bit. We'll go back and really blend everything together at the end. Just kind of, my main goal right now is just to get the ink on the paper, if that makes sense. Forgive me for kind of turning the paper around. I don't want to get my head in the frame here. All right, so I just kind of wanted a little bit of the worn lipstick, and now I'm going to come in with the Candied Apple, and this is our darkest color. I'm going to put it on top here. I'm not worried about the little lines that the foam applicator makes. I'm going to iron all of those out in just a moment. I'm also going to kind of come down the sides just slightly with this darkest color and the bottom. Just very, very slightly. As you can see, I'm doing most of it off the paper and just putting a tiny little bit on the bottom there, as you can see. All right. There we go. Now I'm going to come back in with the worn lipstick and really mix that up top here with this candied apple. All right, that is looking really good. I like the top. Now we just have to mix the wild honey at the bottom here. You can see there's a little bit left. We're just going to blend all of this together now. So it's a very smooth transition from one color to the next. We just want it to look effortless as one color kind of fades into the next. It's looking really good. Could I come back in just a little bit more now with the worn lipstick, just to soften that blend between the wild honey and the worn lipstick. All right, that is looking really, really, really pretty, I think. So I think we'll call that. Now I'm actually not going to do any water spritzing today. Sometimes I do with stencils and sometimes I don't, and it's just a matter of just my idea for this design. But you could absolutely do some spritzing. As we know, the Distress Oxide and regular Distress inks as well react really beautifully to water, and it creates this really, really neat effect. But for today's purposes, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave it as it is. Now I'm going to bring over this leaf stencil, which comes in a set from Honeybee Stamps of the, I believe it's called, oh shoot, I can't remember off the top of my head right now what this set is called, but it's amazing. And you get leaves, you get raindrops, and you get hearts. I will have, again, on my blog, a link of all of the products that were needed to create this card, and it will, of course, have the name of the stencil there in that on that blog post. So I'm going to get kind of the stencil where I want it here, and then I'm going to turn it over, and I just have some micropore tape, which is a very low tack tape, and I'm just going to tape the cardstock to the back of the stencil. This will help my stencil not move, but also not interfere with what I'm doing in terms of placing the gold glimmer on top of the stencil. All right, so let's go ahead now and do this fun gold part. I just have a little palette knife here, and I have some gold glimmer paste. I'm going to open up the glimmer paste and then take my little palette knife and mix it up just a little bit to get that glitter really flowing. All right, now I'm going to put a dollop of it on my palette knife here, and I'm just going to lay it down, get it on that stencil, and now we're going to, I like to call it buttering. It feels like you're kind of buttering a piece of bread. But I'm going to now carefully place the glimmer paste on top of the stencil and make sure that it gets into all of the little crevices for the leaves that are on the paper. Obviously, this stencil is large, it's 6 by 6, so it doesn't cover the entirety of my paper, my cardstock that I have done my distress inking on. So I'm not worried, obviously, about the parts that are not on the cardstock. I'm just worried about the leaves that are on my beautiful background that I have created here. So I just want to make sure that I have this glimmer paste nice and inside all of these little nooks and crannies here. So I'm just carefully doing that right now, making sure that every little leaf is beautifully coated with the gold. This is actually very relaxing. I really am starting to love this technique. I'm really loving what I'm seeing on the market right now with as far as stencils go. I love stencils. They're not very expensive, so the price point is wonderful. And they really can add so much to your card. There's so much that you can do with stencils, so many different techniques, that it's really great to see so many amazing companies coming out with so many innovative stencils for us to use. Because again, anything that's inexpensive but yet allows me to do amazing things with my cards, I am all about. Okay, this is looking really great. All the leaves look beautiful. So what I'm going to do is remove the stencil and show you kind of the finished product. Let me just, there's a couple leaves that aren't perfect. I just want to fix those super quick, and then we'll pull this stencil up and you'll get to see how beautiful this is. When you are working with glimmer paste, you want to make sure that you immediately, so as soon as I'm off camera, I will do this, but you want to immediately clean your stencil off. Otherwise, this will harden on your stencil and your palette knife and you won't be able to get it off, and you don't want that. All right, let's go ahead and pull this off. Ta-da! And there you have your beautiful, beautiful leaves on the back of your background. So beautiful. This is actually a little piece of wipe from cleaning the stencil before. I apologize for that. All right, but there you can see how beautiful is that. Oh, it's just so beautiful. I can't get enough of this technique. Absolutely love it. So again, make sure you clean this stencil off immediately. I would set this aside to dry. Obviously clean the stencil and palette knife off immediately. Here is that finished card again, so you can see how beautiful it is with that beautiful background. And like I said, I just added some of those black Nuvo drops and some black splatter paint just to give it a little bit extra. And then there's our colored images. All right, guys, so that's it. I apologize. I know this video is long. Thanks for hanging in there with me. I hope that you enjoyed this technique today. I love it, and I love these stencils from Honeybee Stamps. So thank you so much for hanging out with me and crafting with me today, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks. Bye-bye.